I would probably do this standing up, but I twisted my knee playing laser tag. And I can't walk. High school. What does it teach you? Math, reading, science, history, art, music, acting, playing. Sure. All of those. Maybe more, depending on the classes you take or the clubs that you join. But what did school teach me? If I had to sum it up in a word, I would probably say humanity. I learned to be a person. I learned to make friends and talk with people and connect. If I stayed home, locked in my room, I never would have learned any of that. In elementary school, I had no friends. Like, none. I had people I talked to, but it seemed like everyone was closer to each other than I was. Everyone talked with everyone, so I guess I was included sometimes, but I wasn't an easy kid to get along with. I didn't like to share. I thought I was always right. I switched schools a few different times as well. The only friends that I made at school were the weirdos. Weirdos. The outcasts. People who were accused of being gay, or weird, or mean. And I didn't know it yet, but I was all three. In middle school, I made my first best friend. We spent all of the time in the world together. I didn't know how to make a normal connection, because she was the only connection I had ever made outside of family before. She was the first friend that slept over. She was my first girlfriend. That connection was so raw, so confusing to me. I didn't know what anything meant ever about anything, honestly. And a lot of the times I felt like I was making the wrong choices at every turn. And yet she stayed there with me, and so I thought this must be what it means to have a best friend. After elementary school, I had finally spent 3 years at one school. At the end of my 8th grade year, I transferred out, and I switched again. My mom knew I was depressed, and that school wasn't making it any better. So, I switched. But everyone else already had their friends and their groups. Everyone was already used to one another. Everyone knew everyone else. Except for me, the new kid. I made a couple friends. I found a lunch table to sit at. And then COVID hit. In that 3-month summer, I experienced the worst depression I had ever felt up to that point. I was giving away all my things. I was showering and cleaning less. I wasn't talking to anyone. I stayed in my room all day, and I did nothing of note. Maybe I drew a couple times, but it wasn't stuff that I liked. Maybe I played video games, but I don't remember any of it. And I didn't have any friends to walk me through it. In that 3-month depression, I was feeling more alone than ever. I didn't feel like I could turn to anyone. I didn't like myself, or my life, or anything. That's what depression does to you. Suddenly, you hate everything. I started my freshman year over COVID, of course. The only class that I actually remember from that year is theater class. For a very simple reason. I already met my teacher, and she was one of the few teachers that was nice, one of the few teachers that I liked. And, more importantly, I made my second ever best friend. And my second ever partner, eventually. That didn't last long, but that's okay. I was learning all these new feelings, all of these new perspectives on life. I discovered music, and I discovered acting, and I discovered friendship in this new form that I had never seen before. And I discovered kindness. Kindness in a way that I wasn't used to experiencing. Then, near the beginning of my sophomore year, me and that friend and our other best friend had a falling out. They had each other, but I just had me, and I was alone again. I had to rebuild my entire social circle from scratch, because freshman year I didn't know anyone, I only talked to 2 people. I was so devastated. I was sickened by being alone, and I became an easy target for someone who wasn't really all that nice to become friends with me. That person was included in a not-so-good friend group that I had began building. We were a small community surrounded by each other. Probably an echo chamber. But through that person, that awful person who hurt me and hurt my friends, I found my current best friend, Ren. The first time that I properly talked to Ren, the first time we had a conversation, it was because they were telling me about all this stuff that this awful person was doing to them, the way that they were hurting them. And I realized, hey, they're also hurting me like that. And from then on, we became utterly inseparable. We were best friends. It was finding a new definition of best friend. And it's a definition that I still keep to this day because it's a friendship that has meant so much to me. Me and my best friend are now far away from that situation, so are all of the friends that we still have. And I can only hope that that person, that any person who has wronged me or I've wronged them, has gotten better. Because being in school like this, we're all kids. We're all stupid, we don't know any better. And all you really can do is hope that those other people get better. You can work on yourself, but you can't work on them, so you have to hope. So my sophomore year was filled to the brim with drama, but it did kind of feel like I got it all out of the way, finally. During that time, I met my other best friend in the entire world. Through thick and thin, we stayed friends. We stayed best friends. Through all these friend groups weaving our way through people who weren't all that nice, or who maybe we just didn't click with, we stayed together. Recently, I had passed around a book for all my friends to sign because it's my senior year and I'm graduating. And what he wrote in it just made me start sobbing. And I couldn't ask for a better person to have gotten me through those 3 years. My junior year, I began making serious steps to understand people and myself. I figured out my religion and I used it as a guiding tool to help me better understand the world around me. Most specifically, love, understanding, and art. I learned that love comes in many shapes and sizes. You can love anyone or everyone, or you can choose to love no one. Love requires effort. Love requires perseverance and patience. Love requires you, and love requires someone else. Although sometimes that love is just you loving yourself, and you are both people. I learned that understanding was something that you choose to do. Even if you don't know the full story, if you don't know that person that well, if you don't know their situation, you can choose to understand them. Sometimes I was doing that with the wrong people. Now I can only hope that I'm doing it right. A part of understanding is trust. When I understand someone, I'm choosing to trust who they are and what they're saying. There's no point in suspicion in a world that feeds off of the negativity that you provided. I learned that art was something you choose to make, whether you're doing it for yourself or others. I learned there are many different ways to create, and not all of them have to be hard. I learned that for me specifically, my favorite art form was creating stories. That includes drawing and writing and filming and editing. I joined a program specifically for radio TV broadcasting, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made, even if it took me away from my other passion, which was the arts program I was doing at my high school. Both of them made me who I am today. This year, my senior year, I've solidified all of these ideals as much as you can at the ripe age of 18, when your brain is still not fully developed. I made some mistakes, which I do every year, and I will do every year until I die. But from these mistakes, I choose to learn from them, rather than get angry or dwell on them. In the future, I'll make so many more mistakes. That doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person either. It makes us human. It gives us humanity. Next year, I will be a freshman in college. I will be majoring in English writing and broadcast communications. I'll be meeting new people, and I'll be learning even more about life and what it has to offer. My biggest advice for freshmen coming into high school, or anyone in high school already, is be ready to learn. Be ready to fail. Be ready to fall, and be ready to change. There are so many parts of you that someone can love, and there are so many parts of you that someone can hate. Don't give others the power to shape you. Give yourself the ability to work with others as partners to explore the world and learn. Learn with them, love with them, and change with them. If you have friendships that don't last, that's okay. If you have passions that don't follow you, that's okay. If you feel like you're making mistakes over and over again, you probably are. And that's okay. Everything feels so big when it happens, especially in high school. Everything feels like it's the end of the world or the start of a brand new one. And in that moment when you're feeling that, your feelings are valid. And later, when you look back on those things and think that was not as big of a deal as I was making it, that's valid too. When these things happen that feel so big, it's when you have to be ready to learn the most. Don't just speak to your friends about it though. Speak to your parents or teachers or trusted adults. Research online through scientific websites and Reddit threads and blog posts. Read books and stories, watch YouTube videos, find people you can relate to, and see what they've learned, and see what they can teach you. You cannot walk through this world alone. People are not a singular unit. We are not meant to be lone wolves. We are a massive sea of stars who flicker and flit in the sky, constantly moving and changing night after night. Something that doesn't change about the stars, though, are constellations. There is a path that these stars take, and the stars know that they are worthy of that path. Follow your dreams, grow and change, and your constellation will guide you. If you're watching this, if you're one of my friends who I sent this video to, or you're just someone who happened upon it scrolling through YouTube, I hope that I can give you something. If not advice, then maybe confidence or hope. Either way, I want anyone and everyone watching to remember this. no matter what part you get, what role you play, to someone, to me, you're a star.